I did hear you talk the other day on your pod about Kim Ng and her departure from the Miami Marlins. We've covered it a lot the last few days. We're actually going to cover it a lot today. We have Britt Droley coming on the show later on to go over this. Ken Rosenthal was very vocal about it. We all have been, because there is zero accountability right now in terms of an explanation. So give us your thoughts, and don't hold back on the optics of this situation that, in my mind, because like I heard you talking about, hey, you're taking all the pride in hiring the first female general manager, and then you're trying to like basically just bury the story in the middle of the playoffs. Like, I'm sorry, that's not how this works. And if you do hire the first female general manager, you might have to have, sure, it could not work out, but you're going to have more transparency, because this is a story that doesn't just get covered in sports. And I've actually been surprised, because news stations were all over it when it first happened. I haven't seen almost any coverage of it at all, besides this show and a few articles and podcasts.
Scott, that's a great point. You're right. I think that her hiring was seen as a watershed moment in industry, and to the way that it has kind of flown under the radar. First of all, I should say, you guys, I'm going to listen to you guys talk to Britt about it later, because she's done such incredible work on this from like a real reporter standpoint, and she's such an expert on how this all went down. So she's the real voice of expertise here. I just think it was so disappointing. I want to be careful on how I talk about this, because I don't want people to say like, oh, you think there's a double standard and women should get more leeway or whatever, because that's not true. And first of all, people were pretty mad when Chaim Bloom lost his job, because they felt like he didn't get a fair shot. And there's, all this stuff being written about how the Red Sox might be not be an attractive job because they had such short patience for their GMs. And we're talking like 4 years. And Kim Ng was not fired, but perhaps not appreciated enough after only 3 years. So we're being fair in that sense. But I also think, again, let me see how to say this without saying something incorrect. She's making progress. And when you come in as a GM, you already are working against the incumbents and whatever it is. And also just being a GM takes a long time to manifest on the field, because a lot of what you're doing is drafting and player development and trades for maybe minor leaguers who haven't come up yet. So, the first 2 years, you're not even really judging her work based on the product on the field. But beyond that, like, she's someone who had so many years of experience in baseball, but not at this level. And that is a direct sort of result of sexism. Like, we can say, I think, sort of unequivocally that like Kim Ng did not get a GM job before this because she was a woman. And so if she had been successful elsewhere, I think she would have gotten a longer leeway in Miami. Or, right, if she had been a proven championship builder, they would see the Marlins getting to the playoffs in 3 years as a sign that they were on the right path. And so in that way, even if they are judging her sort of fairly in the same way they would judge a man, they are being biased against her, because they're using her lack of president of baseball operations type experience against her. And that is something that she couldn't control, because she interviewed for lots of GM jobs and it was widely known that she was overqualified. And so in that way, it's like maybe she could have taken a team with a bigger budget all the way to the pennant. And if she had done that in previous stops, would she have gotten a better chance in Miami? Maybe, probably. And in that way, like, you do have to be willing, if you are going to take the step of hiring a female GM, to give her a truly fair shot to show you what it is that she can do. And I don't know that they did that.
And the timing is insane. The Miami Marlins never make the playoffs. I live down there, so I can go over it. And also, I know that, aside from the news part, which is weird, that like news publications, even just like sports spots that don't cover news specifically, baseball specifically, like ESPN, I'd be curious. I'm not watching enough to know, but I'd be curious. They were all over that story when it happened. Are they covering it a lot right now? I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong. So. But I haven't seen much from them, and I follow them on social and all of that, right? So for me, the team made it to the postseason. She built a better bullpen that fixed the 1-run record. she picked up Jake Berger and Josh Bell at the trade deadline. Like I saw one article that was like, well, they signed like Segura and Gurriel. I'm like, yeah, for pennies. I mean, those were like low level signings because they have no resources ever, the Marlins. The problem also in our sport right now, too, Hannah, is like every team wants to be the Rays. There's one freaking Rays, right?
Mhm.
Every team's like, oh, we should spend nothing and be great and just rely on analytics. Well, how is that working for everyone else? Not that well. So, and I know that there was an analytics discussion, which I think you got into, paints a bad picture for her too, because it's not like she's not using information behind the scenes. So I just think everything about this story right now smells, and it can be fixed if there's a conversation. I would think Kim is going to speak more publicly about it at some point, because we know the Marlins aren't going to speak publicly about it. They would love to shove it under the rug and just
Yeah.
move the hell on.
I don't say this knowing anything, but I would not be surprised if she doesn't speak publicly about it, because if there has one thing that has defined Kim Ang's career, it is knowing that she can't publicly complain if she wants to continue to get opportunities in this industry. That was something that really stood out to me when she first got hired with the Marlins. And suddenly she was doing tons and tons of press, specifically talking about, of course, being the first female GM of a men's major sport, but also the path she took to get there and how overqualified she was. And that was sort of the first major moment in which she got to talk a little bit about having to do all these interviews for jobs that she knew were performative, and she knew they weren't taking her seriously. And she went a really long time not saying that publicly. And she is someone who has consistently, I think, done what she's needed to do to succeed in an industry that wasn't prepared to watch her succeed, at least not when she started her career.
Yep. And my thing is like, um, if the Marlins were a 100 loss team the last few years, like, cool, like, okay, we get it, So it just hasn't been the case. But good discussion, Hannah. Have fun out there. Enjoy the rest of the postseason. We'll try and get some like more entertaining games for you. Maybe
Yeah.
some comebacks, some lead changes, stuff like that, and then we'll catch you in a few weeks.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me.